Thanks for watching this week. This week I am camping with my friends, and I thought I was going to be able to do a Bible study with my friends for Thanksgiving, but it gets too noisy and it gets too crazy outside to do a Bible study with them. So I decided to do the Bible study here in my camper, and I've been really falling behind because I had a lot of things going on. By the way, that's Muffin. She is snoring beside me. So, I hope all of you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know I had a wonderful time with my friends. We've done some great food and we've gone hiking and we've just been enjoying some time outdoors with nature and God's wonderful planet, beautiful world, and all the things that He provides for us. And I'm super excited to get to read you chapters 28, 29 in the Bible today. So let's get to it because this is really an exciting time to read the Bible. Especially when I go outdoors, and I love to be outdoors with the Bible. It's also getting nightfall here, so my lighting is not that great, but this is the time that I'm able to do this when everybody's kind of quieted down in their own campers and in their tents and stuff like that, so I can get this Bible study done without interruptions, hopefully. So let's get to it today. We are in Genesis 28 and 29 of the King James Bible. That's what I'm reading from. So let's get started with chapter 28. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. If you remember that Jacob had to leave because he pulled a fast one on his brother Esau, and Esau was ready to kill him. So now he has to leave because he feels his brother's going to kill him. So this is where we're at this week. Verse 2, Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take thee a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. Verse 3, And God Almighty bless thee, and make thee fruitful, and multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people. Verse number 4. So this is Isaac blessing Jacob as he sends him off because he knows that he has to leave. Number 4, And give thee the blessing of Abraham to thee and to thy seed with thee, that thou mayest inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which God gave unto Abraham. Verse 5, And Isaac sent away Jacob, and he went to Padan Aram unto Laban, son of Bethuel the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob's and Esau's mother. So now we go to verse number 6. It says, this is the part where Esau intermingles with Ishmael's clan. Even though he was already doing stuff in the past with the other type of women also who were pagan, but now he's really intermingled with Ishmael's family, as we talked about in the last Bible study. Verse number 6, When Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to take him a wife from thence, and that as he blessed him, he gave him a charge, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Verse 7, And the Jacob obeyed his father and his mother, and was gone to Padan Aram. And Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not Isaac his father, then went Esau unto Ishmael, and took unto the wives which he had Mahlah, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebuchadnezzar, to his wife. So Esau was unfit for God's blessing because of rebellious. And verse number 10, And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. This was about 40 miles that he had to travel in order to save his life from his brother who was willing to kill him. Number 11, And he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night because the sun was set. And he took of the stones of that place and put them for his pillows and lay down in that place to sleep. Okay, it's getting dark, so I'm turning the light on. And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. Verse number 13, And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord of God, Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land wherein thou liest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed. And thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south, and in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and will bring thee again into this land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. So this was God's covenant promise. I'm reading from my notes to Abraham and Isaac, that this was a covenant promise he made to Abraham and Isaac, and it was offered to Jacob, but he had to establish his own personal relationship with God. So he wasn't going to get a free pass. This was just God giving him the promise. But remember, he had to make his own relationship with God. He had a choice, and God gives us choice to walk with him or to not walk with him. And that was ultimately going to be his test. Verse number 16, and Jacob awakened out of his sleep, and he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. So this is his time now to realize that he needs to fellowship with God. Verse number 17, and he was afraid, and he said, how dreadful is this place? This is none other than but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. And verse number 18, and Jacob rose up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put for his pillows and set it up for a pillar and poured oil upon the top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of that city was called Luz at the first. Verse number 20, and Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in his way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God. So he's bargaining with God out of ignorance. This is like ignorant worship. He's actually bargaining with God. Soon enough, he's going to find out that you do not bargain with God. Verse 22, and this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be God's house, and of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the 10th unto thee. All right, let's talk about this ladder for a second. This ladder that he dreamed of in verse number 12. It says, and he dreamed, and behold, the ladder set upon the earth, and the top of the reached the heaven, and behold, the angels of God ascending and descending. The ladder, I'm reading from my notes, represents the stages by which a person ascends into spirituality. So we have to grow in our progress to fellowship with God and get closer to God. Up and down, a man moves about, not standing as an attendant, but indicates a man must progress from rung to rung and not stand on a run forever. So in other words, the angels are going up and down, but man cannot stand in one place on a ladder. He has a choice to go down the ladder or go up the ladder. And most assuredly, you're going to want to go up the ladder because you're going to want to get closer to God. And that is what the dream represented. That means that's why I was saying to you that he has to make his own relationship with God. It's not something hereditary that you can get that because your mother or your father or whatever. You have to have your own relationship with God. You can't inherit it. All right, let's go on. Certainly, I mean, if you have people who follow God, you're going to be closer to it, but you have to eventually put your faith and love in God yourself. Okay, verse 29. Then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east, and he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. And thither were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the sheep, and put the stone again upon the well's mouth in his place. And Jacob said unto them, my brethren, whence be ye? And they said, of Haran are we. And he said unto them, know ye Laban the son of Nahor? And they said, we know him. And he said unto them, is he well? And they said, he is well. And behold, Rachel his daughter cometh with the sheep. And he said, lo, it is yet high day, neither is it time that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye sheep, and go and feed them. And they said, we cannot until all the flocks be gathered together, until they roll the stone from the well's mouth, when we water the sheep. And while he spake with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. This is verse 9. Number 10, and it came to pass, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Okay, so let's just talk about this for a second. 40 years earlier, reading from my notes, it was Rebekah who met Eliezer, Abraham's servant. He was looking for a wife for Isaac in this well, in the same well. Jacob's love was passionate for Rebekah. Number 11, and Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted his voice and wept. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. So Jacob had a passionate love for Rachel the minute he saw her. He understood that from his first encounter with her that she would be his wife. He knew that she was destined to be with this girl. And now in this verse where he removed the stone, he wanted to prove his strength to her. And this was a stone that required the strength of 3 men. And this is why he was so in love with her. He moved the stone on his own. Okay, the other part that I wanted to tell you about here is verse number 11, where it said, in verse number 11, when it says, and Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. The reason that he wept is because, remember, he left in a sudden hurry. He didn't bring anything with him. He wasn't a rich man. He really can't marry a woman. He was in love with this woman, but he was torn because he knew from the moment she was going to be his wife, but he didn't have anything to offer her. Like, what was he going to go to the parents and offer the parents for this girl when he really was poor? He didn't have anything to offer. So that's why he wept, because in his soul he knew that this was going to be really difficult and he might not get a chance to be with her, because what were the parents going to say? Verse number 13. And it came to pass, when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. And he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him the space of a month. So he stayed with him a month. That's Muffin. And he stayed with him a month because they're basically family. Number 15. And Laban said unto Jacob, because thou art my brother, shouldest thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? And Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. 17. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. Number 18. And Jacob loved Rachel and said, I will serve 7 years for Rachel thy younger daughter. And Laban said, it is better that I give her to thee than that I should give her to another man. Abide with me. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel. So he had a pact, because he didn't have anything to offer the family of the wife. He had to work in order to marry Rachel. So he worked 7 years. He made a contract with him that he would work 7 years for Laban in order for him to be able to marry Rachel. Verse number 20. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days, for the love he had to her. Number 21. And Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. Number 22. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. 23. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. Number 24. We'll talk about it in a second. And Laban gave into his daughter Leah Zilpah, his maid, for a handmaid. And it came to pass, for in that morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Did I not serve thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? Number 26. And Laban said, it must not be so done in our country to give the youngest before the firstborn. Number 27. Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with her. So in other words, what happened here was that the oldest daughter had to be married first before the youngest daughter. He was very patient waiting the 7 years, and he didn't know what the requirement was, but he had to marry the oldest daughter first. So it's really funny, because remember that Jacob is a deceiver and a manipulator. Remember what happened, how he deceived his brother out of the blessings and the birthright? Well, here is a situation where actually now he is the one that's getting deceived. Where it says here, fulfill her week, that means that there's a whole week ceremony in the marriage. They get married, and then there's this whole week ceremony. So he has to wait out the week before he can actually marry Leah. But the pact now is that he has to work another 7 years for Laban in order to marry Rachel. He had to wait another 7 years. But it's almost like he was indebted to him. So after 7 days, he was able to marry her, but he still had to work through all of that. 27, fulfill her week. Okay, we did that. Number 28, and Jacob did so and fulfilled her week and gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also. 29. And Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah his handmaid to be her maid. 30. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. So this is where I'm saying he was indebted for another 7 years, because the first 7 years was really to marry Leah so that he can marry Rachel, but now he has to put in another 7 years of debt. 31. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. So Leah had children before Rachel did. Leah was considered as property. She was traded like a business deal by her father. This was a loveless marriage. He didn't really love her. But she did want him to notice her. And that was eventually why she named her son Reuben, which was the first child that Jacob had, was with Leah, and she named him Reuben because she wanted him to notice her. Now, another thing that I have read on here is that the hard thing about this thing with Rachel is that Rachel had to be an accomplice to the scheme of switching Leah in her place. Because remember, at the wedding, he thought that was Leah. So what I read in other places is that she actually had to teach her sister how to maneuver and walk and act like her during this whole time that she was undercover under the veil, so he wouldn't take notice before the wedding that this is actually Leah. So she was an accomplice to this. She was more dedicated to her father and her family. She was an accomplice because she was doing what was right for her family. Even though she loved him, she had to put aside her feelings and walk first with the love of her family and do what she was supposed to do for her father. Verse 32, and Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. 33, and she conceived again and bare a son, and said, because the Lord had heard that I was hated, he had therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. 34, and she conceived again and bare a son, and said, now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. 35, and she conceived again and bare a son, and she said, now will I praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, and left bearing. So at this time she had 4 boys with Jacob. I'm going to cut this Bible study short this week because I am camping, and I'm not going to be able to load a really big long video for this week because I'm camping and I'm using my data. So I'm going to keep it short here, but I did want to do a Bible study this week because I love the story, and I think it's wonderful that love can be so wonderful when you fall in love like that. So I thank you all for watching. Next week we're going to be back to a regular Bible study. So I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving with your family, and I hope you have a rest of the week. That's a wonderful week. And if you have any prayer requests, please leave it down below. And I thank you so much for watching. I hope that you subscribe to my channel, and God bless all of you, and stay tuned next week for more of the story of Jacob and Rachel and Leah. Thanks for watching. Bye bye. Have a great week. Bye.